Imagine this for a moment. You wake up early, the alarm goes off, and in those few seconds between snoozing the alarm or getting up, a battle begins. One voice says, just a few more minutes, you deserve it. Another whispers, get up, the day won't wait for you. That tiny choice may seem small, but it's the exact battlefield of self-discipline. And here's the fascinating truth, the people we admire most, the ones who seem unstoppable, aren't born with some magical power. They've simply trained this inner muscle called willpower. Self-discipline is not about punishment or forcing yourself to suffer. It's less about freedom, the freedom to act in line with your goals rather than your impulses. And psychology has shown us that willpower is not infinite, but it can be strengthened, just like a muscle at the gym. The more you practice, the more control you gain over your habits, your choices, and ultimately, your life. Let's start with what science tells us. Psychologist Baumeister's famous studies on willpower introduced the idea of ego depletion. The belief that willpower gets weaker as you use it throughout the day. That's why making healthy choices in the morning feels easier than resisting junk food at night. But here's where it gets more interesting. Newer research suggests willpower might not actually run out, but instead, it depends heavily on your mindset. If you believe your willpower is limited, it will feel limited. If you believe it's renewable, you actually perform better. In other words, how you think about self-control shapes how much of it you truly have. Now, let's break down the art of self-discipline in real life. One of the most powerful strategies is delayed gratification, the ability to resist short-term pleasure for long-term rewards. You've probably heard of the famous marshmallow experiment, where children were offered one marshmallow immediately or two if they waited. Decades later, researchers found that those who could wait tended to be more successful in life. But here's the secret most people don't know, those kids weren't just stronger. They distracted themselves, they sang songs, covered their eyes, or looked away. In other words, self-discipline wasn't about brute force, it was about smart strategies. As adults, we can apply the same lesson. If your phone tempts you, don't just tell yourself to resist, put it in another room while you work. If junk food calls your name, don't rely on willpower alone, don't buy it in the first place. Self-discipline isn't about fighting temptation head-on, it's about designing your environment so temptation never gets a chance. But what about the moments when you can't avoid it? This is where micro-decisions matter. Self-discipline thrives in the small choices you make daily. Saying, I'll just walk for 5 minutes, instead of planning a 1-hour workout makes it easier to begin. Once you start, momentum often carries you forward. Psychology calls this the activation energy principle. The hardest part is starting, and once you do, the brain shifts from resistance to flow. Another key lies in identity-based discipline. Instead of saying, I want to quit smoking, say, I'm not a smoker. Instead of, I want to exercise, say, I'm the kind of person who values health. When discipline is tied to identity, your actions feel natural, not forced. You don't fight against your impulses, you redefine who you are. Of course, discipline also requires rest. Many people think willpower means pushing endlessly, but that's a misunderstanding. Just like muscles need recovery, your mind needs restoration. Sleep, nutrition, and breaks aren't luxuries, they're fuel for discipline. In fact, lack of sleep is one of the fastest ways to weaken self-control. That's why tired people make poor decisions, overspend, or overeat. Self-discipline thrives when your body and mind are cared for. And here's the deeper truth, discipline isn't just about doing hard things. It's also about kindness. Kindness toward your future self. When you save money instead of spending it, you're giving a gift to your future self. When you study instead of scrolling endlessly, you're building opportunities for tomorrow. Self-discipline is love stretched across time. Now, think of this, every act of self-discipline today creates a ripple effect. One disciplined choice strengthens the next. Slowly, you're not just changing habits, you're rewriting your story. People often ask, how do I stay disciplined forever? The answer is simple, you don't need to. You only need to be disciplined in this moment, with this choice. Then repeat. Discipline is not about perfection, it's about persistence. So the next time you feel tempted, remind yourself, you are not weak for struggling. You are human. And self-discipline isn't about never struggling. It's about continuing despite the struggle. That's where real strength lives. Because in the end, willpower isn't a prison. It's the art of choosing freedom, the freedom to live the life you truly want, rather than the life your impulses decide for you.